Welcome back, everybody, for our next speech here in SEVillage. I am excited to be presenting this topic. It's brand new for me, so I'm happy to have you folks here joining me for some new information. That's kind of fun. So, as always in the past, please drop your questions into the chat, and we will try to answer them as much as I can. And watching multiple screens, doing all that kind of fun stuff. So we'll see how good I do. Okay. Anyhow, it's nice to have been able to do this virtually with you folks. And I'm glad we got to at least partake in some of the DEF CON festivities, although I'm getting a lot more sleep and a lot less alcohol by being here and doing this virtually. So that's wonderful. Okay. I want to talk to you about this topic. Make them want to tell you the science behind elicitation. And the reason I decided on this topic here today was mainly because in my most recent book, The Human Hacking, Win Friends, Influence People, and Leave Them Better Off for Having Met You, one of my chapters was all about elicitation. And I wrote it because I really had a hard time finding information that mapped out what elicitation is and how it works. So let me start off just by saying, what is the definition of elicitation? Well, the Cambridge Dictionary defines it as the process of getting or producing something, especially information or a reaction. Okay, now that's one definition that we can see there happening in the dictionary. Whereas the FBI on their website, and we'll not read all of this text there, but they basically define it as having a conversation that is being used to collect information from a target. Now, I like both of those definitions, but I like to blend them together in the aspect of what we can discuss with social engineering. So I actually define elicitation as a conversation with intent. That's how I love to define it. So you're having a conversation with someone, and really it's just a matter of that you want to get their name or their date of birth or their password or something like that. But to them, it should look just like a normal conversation. And that piece of information should not strike them as odd when they give it over. Now, as with anything that we try to define here at Social Engineer, our company, and in the SEVillage, is I tried really hard to define a set of principles or rules that can help us all to reproduce this effect of using elicitation. And I did that after years of doing it wrong and right. And I think one of the best ways to help you show you about following the rules is to tell you a story where there is some success, but also some failure. And what I'm happy about with this story is that I can't see Ryan's face here because in this story, you're going to hear some things that are going to make me sound like a really bad boss and putting Ryan's life in danger multiple times. But anyhow, I digress. Let's talk about the story and the rules. So first rule of elicitation is framing the goal. Now, what does that mean? Because we're talking about now all SE, right? But the main part of SE, social engineering, is when you're going to engage with a target. You're about to go interact with them, whether it's through the phone, in person, email, that you have to have your goal set before you even start developing your opening lines. Now, in the case of work, a lot of times in a professional SE environment, your scope actually frames your goal for you. So you know exactly what the client wants out of this. In this particular job, we had multiple different vectors that we had to try for. Ryan and I were going out to a location, another location far away from us in the US, and we were supposed to breach this facility, a highly secure facility, in broad daylight. So in essence, they were asking us to not, pick locks and jump over fences, but they were asking for us to walk into the front door and have a very reasonable excuse for why we belong in this building. And that would allow security to ignore us, and we would be able to walk through the building, taking videos and pictures, dropping USB keys places, and having a proof of concept that that they were breachable. So that was the first stage of this, right? Now, that's the goal. So goal, let's just set it, is Ryan and I needed to gain access inside of this facility. Now, and we had to do it through speech. So we had to go in and not use any kind of tools or anything like that and just sneak in, but we had to walk in through the front door. So what's rule number 2? Observation is key. Now, when you hear that, what do you think of? Well, I think of OSINT, right? So that's the first stage of what we had to do once we framed the goal. So now we have our goals in place. We have to start digging deeply into OSINT to figure out what is it that we can learn about this location that may give us an idea for a good pretext that will allow for elicitation. So we start digging into this location. And based on where it was, we found out that the time of year we were going, there was a couple different things that could work for us. And we found that one was that there's a certain type of insects that would be prevalent during that time of year, and they're considered pests. So maybe we can use pest control as part of our pretext to go on site, and that would allow us to get in. We then did OSINT on who this facility uses for pest control. And we found out, fortunately for us. So we had outfits made, we had invoices made, our trusty little clipboard. We had all of our beautiful chemicals and everything in spray cans. And we decided that we were going to go on site with that. Now, there was a couple facilities we had to breach in this particular job. At another part of the facility, they were having a groundbreaking ceremony. So they were building a whole new building, and they were going to have a big public event where people can come and watch this groundbreaking ceremony. Now, when I say public event, it was invite only. They didn't broadcast where the address was for this. So our first job at OSINT was to obtain that. So now we have these two things. We know by OSINT who does their pest control. And over here, we knew that there was an event that would allow for maybe another pretext being reporters where we can gain access. So now we have our framing the goal, which is done by scope. And our second is doing deep research in OSINT to understand what it is that we can use to start framing that goal and making that goal happen. Now it's where we start to get into the real meat of elicitation. And that's here, planning both the opener and the exit. Now, this is a really important step of this because there's a really interesting psychological fact in the way that we work as humans. And this applies mostly to when we are dealing with physical interaction. Okay, so I'm taking phone and an email out of the picture just for a minute when we're talking about this because of the job that I'm telling you. So the way that our brains work, especially when it comes to the chemical of oxytocin, which is related to trust and rapport, is when we first see somebody, our brainstem makes a very quick snap judgment on that person. And we base it on some things. Now, we had some conversations with different speakers, and Shelby brought this up in our Q&A and other things like that we have to talk about this. And Ryan mentioned it before. It's very difficult because it's not politically correct. But the fact is, we all have bias. Now, and I'm not saying that we're all prejudiced or things like that, but we have bias. And maybe bias could be, what do you find attractive? What do you find, what do you think is good looking? What do you find unattractive? Okay, so you might have all of these different biases in your mind. Now, when you see somebody for the first time, your brainstem gathers all of those biases, whether they're positive or negative, and it says, I like this person, or it says, I don't like this person. Now, here's the crazy part. Our neocortex goes into action, and the only thing it does is it starts to look for evidence that you're right. It does not look for evidence to prove you wrong. This kind of blows my mind. It feels like why would that happen? Now, I understand it scientifically, but it's kind of annoying because if you decide, well, this person's trustworthy, now your neocortex is looking for all these different things, and you're looking at the clothing, and you're saying, yep, that's the kind of clothing a trustworthy person wears, or that's the kind of phone that a trustworthy person has. Whatever it is, your neocortex starts to look for evidence that you are right. Okay, now, why is all of this science so important? Because when you're planning your opener, and we'll get to the exit in a minute, you have to realize that within that very first few seconds that you meet your target, that their brain is going to be making these judgments. So if you do it wrong, can you succeed? Well, possibly. Okay, you can. But if you do it wrong, there's a good possibility that it's going to take a lot of work and effort to get back up to par. So that's the opener. Now, what about the exit? See, a lot of times when we talk about elicitation and social engineering, one of the things that I find new folks in SE forget to plan is what happens when you have to exit. So whether you're successful and you now want the engagement to end, or you're seeing that unsuccess is about to happen and you need to get out. And a lot of times I find that newer folks want to, well, we'll figure that out on the fly, right? Ooh, that's always not a good idea. So you want to have both of those plans, the opener and the exit, done, because that will help your elicitation to seem more smooth and more natural. Now, what's involved in this? So your initial words that you say can really help prove or disprove your pretext. Your tools and props that you have can, again, prove or disprove your pretext. And you have to think through the what if scenarios. You have to. Now, I'm going to caveat that, right? Because here's the problem. Some of us want to think through every what if scenario known to man, and you can't do that. But you do have to plan for some. Okay, so let's get back to our story. I'm going to tell you two different parts of this story. When we decided upon pest control, we decided to have outfits that looked just like pest control, what we thought pest control would look like. Light blue shirts, hats, khakis, things like that. When we decided to go as photographers to the other building, well, we had to have camera equipment. We had to have clothes that we thought would look like a reporter who was going out to take pictures for a newspaper. But there were some other artifacts. We had a business card made with a local phone number for a local newspaper that rang to one of our people. So that way, if they called it to verify that we were there, they would call a local number. They would get a woman who was playing a part of the editor for this local paper, and everything would be great. In addition, we had to have badges to say that we are who we say we are. We had to anticipate that. Now, all of this is before we even plan our opening words, right? So we have the props, we have the tools. Let's talk about the what if. So what if for us with pest control, we said, okay, well, what's the what if scenario? Well, they don't let us in. Or they decide to call the pest control company to say, but I thought we just had our service. Why do you send these guys out? So we started to think, okay, if that happens, if we think they're about to make a call, then we better have a phone number again that they can ring to. So on our invoices, we had another local number that rang to our boss, which was, of course, one of our employees. That would verify why we're there. But what if they denied us, though? What if they said, no, sorry, you're not on the list and we're not letting you in. This is a secure facility and you need to be on the list and approved. Well, then we weren't going to push it. We realized this was an armed facility. So we would just end it there and say, great, that was good. And we'll try to reassess and come back later. Okay, so we had our what ifs. Now, what about in the scenario where we were going to be photographers? Well, in that scenario, we said, if they deny us, that we'll try to push a little harder and we'll hand them this business card and say, please call the editor of this paper. She told us this was all arranged and that we were supposed to be here. And we would hand them the card and have them call and she would be able to verify, and then we would be let in. Okay, so we had our initial words planned. And when I say planned, I don't mean we scripted it out. We weren't sitting there and scripting every word so we popped up and read a piece of paper, but we had the plan in our head. We had a few of the what if scenarios out there. So we knew that if we kind of got caught or got stopped, maybe what we can do to bypass it. And our tools, props, and artifacts all proved our pretext and allowed for us to have hopefully smooth bypasses for anything that can stop us. So all of that's planned out way ahead of time. And then as a last ditch effort, we have the get out of jail free letters. If you're not familiar with that term, the get out of jail free letters that allowed us to hand them over if we got caught. So that way we don't get shot, right? So we have those. I just see a couple questions. I'll answer some of them at the end, but the one, I wish I could tell you that our pest control efforts had those giant backpacks, but we flew into this location. And of course, it doesn't look too great if you bring, like, we have some pro equipment when we do local jobs. So we ended up buying some spraying equipment from a local place there. And we knew we were going to use it just for a few minutes. So we went kind of cheap, which was actually a flaw on our part. I'll talk about that a little bit, but we did have spray equipment and had that all filled with what looked like, we didn't fill it with real poison, we had it filled with water with some food coloring. So we had enough what we thought to really prove our pretext. So when we start our elicitation, that the things, and up to this point in rule number 3, what you can sense that we're trying to do is make it so that when we start conversing with our targets, that there should be nothing about us that brings in to the idea, a what, why are you here, what's going on, that we should be able to easily prove who we are based on the artifacts that we all talked about. Okay, but now at this stage, at rule number 3, we're about to enter into conversation. And that is where rule number 4 comes in. Why did you not go? There we are, rule number 4. Driving the conversation forward. Now, this can be really hard for some, right? Like, I'll give you an example for me. When I get nervous, I tend to ramble, talk a lot. Ryan, when he gets nervous, he tends to clam up and not talk. Now, neither of those personalities are great for driving the conversation forward. So what does it mean to drive the conversation forward? Leading questions. What I have found to be a great aspect of doing social engineering when it comes to elicitation is by using leading questions, it allows people to not only answer the question, but you're leading them down the path of your pretext, right? So think of this. For the pest control, leading question could be, while we're holding the clipboard with a nice invoice that shows we're supposed to be there, we would have a pen, nice pen like this, and you're holding the clipboard. This is not a clipboard, but just say you're holding the clipboard and you're saying, yeah, so I mean, you could see it here too, right? It says we're supposed to come by to do a spraying for scorpions, since this is the time of year that they usually come out. And you're tapping it there. And that leading question has one answer, which is yes, because they could see it. And they know that that is true. I'm leading them down a path of saying yes to a question that will make it easier for my pretext to be honored. Now, for the case of when we went in as photographers, the idea is that there was a big event, it was a public event, and that upon arriving, that we would just be able to walk in and as if we were invited, because the address was not public. So if we had it, we would be able to just pop in and go and take our pictures, and then be able to scoot around and do some of the hacking part of the job once we were in the location. Okay, so that was our plan with our leading questions, and then there's another stage, which is rule number 5, and that is apply active listening. Now, why is this so important? Okay, think of this. If you are only thinking about the very next thing you're going to say after you ask a leading question, it's possible you may miss an opportunity or a very important detail. And I find this, I had to work on this, right? Because your brain's going 100 miles an hour. You got adrenaline. That's normal human. You can't control that. And now you present your first leading question, and the person starts to answer, and you start to think about what I'm going to say next. And you miss a key thing where they told you something really vitally important, or they asked you a question in return. And you're like, what? I'm sorry. What did you say? Can you repeat that? Now you've lost some rapport because you just said you weren't listening to them. So active listening is the idea of where you are listening actively. Obviously, that's what the words mean. But while you're listening actively, you're taking all that information and categorizing it for how you may be able to use it. And it's a skill. And it's not something that comes naturally, and you have to work on it. But this rule number 5 is very important, because there are going to, if security is doing their job at all, they shouldn't just open the door and let you waltz in. Now that does happen, but sometimes what happens is what do you mean? I wasn't notified that you were supposed to come here to spray today. Well, there's going to be a little pushback. So you're going to have to start with leading questions and then active listening in order to get that elicitation into the right place. Now, once you do that, remembering the details is super important, because this can be the matter of success or failure in these jobs. And if you don't remember the details, then later on, you may not be able to use anything that you heard during your active listening session in the social engineering hack, right? So, and this is also not a natural skill for many people. I happen to have not a great memory, but for some reason, when it comes to social engineering, I find that I could remember passwords and things that I've gotten years ago from targets. I can remember little details about accounts that happened so many years ago. My brain is trained for that, interestingly enough. So let's jump back into the story. So here we are, Ryan and I, in this big rented SUV, looking like pest control. And we pull into the location, and I back into a parking spot. Now I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to back in, Ryan, just in case we have to run and flee, that we don't want to get stuck. We want to be able to get out relatively quickly. So, I'm reversing into the spot, and I'm looking behind me, and I look over here in my mirror to reverse, and I hear the door open. And I'm like, oh, Ryan's anxious. He got out fast. And I go to put the car in park. My foot's on the brake, and I look over, and Ryan is being detained, slammed on the hood, and he's being cuffed. And I'm like, oh, well, that's an interesting turn of events. So I put the car back in drive and say, I'm going to take off. Now, Ryan's getting arrested, and I'm going to leave because one of us has to get away so we can still do the job, right? That's what I'm thinking. And he's kind of giving me the head nod, like, no, you better not. And I'm like, I'm going to go. And then a tiny little woman with a weapon is in front of the car, telling me to turn the car off and get out. Now, this is where all of our elicitation training is becoming very, very important. And we're only on rule number 6 right now. Thank you, Ryan. That's a wonderful comment. I will take that. Best boss ever. So I'm trying to talk this woman down from her, having her weapon pointed at us, and asking her to be calm, and asking her to, please, everything's okay. And telling her that we're pest control and all of that. And she is just not having it. So eventually I had to turn the car off and get out, and I get out, and she was, oh boy, I don't know, like, Ryan, what do you think? 5'2", 5'1", 5'2", I think, something like that. She was really short, and she came running over and slammed me on the hood so fast that my glasses and hat flew off my head. And by the time my face bounced off of the hood, both of my hands were cuffed behind my back. And I said to her, wow, that was the best cuffing I've ever seen. And she goes, you get cuffed a lot, don't you, scum? And I'm like, oh boy, this elicitation is not going the way I had planned. So I'm still trying to be very calm, right? And I'm saying, ma'am, can you please take us over to the shade? It's very hot out here. We're not from this area. We can just go stand in the shade. So they bring us over to this nice grassy area underneath a tree, and they make us kneel on the ground. Now, Ryan is like saying, hey, maybe it's time for the letter. And I'm like, nah, we can elicit our way out of this, So we're kneeling on the ground, and she starts emptying all of our pockets, and she says, do you have any weapons? And I just wanted to see if I had what I was going to show you here, and I didn't. I thought I had it here first. Oh, yes. Okay. So she says, do you have any weapons? And I said, no, ma'am, we're not carrying any weapons. So she empties our pockets. Now she picks up this, and she's looking at it, and she's doing this. And I'm like, oh, ma'am, please don't point that at your face. That's what I say to her. Why am I telling you this part of the story here in rule number 6? Detail. This is a detail. She asked me, do you have any weapons? And I said, no. And I have a weapon. Yeah, this is a spring-loaded knife, which I did not take time to look into if it was legal to carry this in the state we were in, just because it's legal in the state I'm from. So here she is, looking down the barrel of the spring-loaded knife, and I'm saying to her, please don't do that, ma'am. And she's like, why not? And I'm like, that's because it's a spring-loaded knife. And then I thought you said you had no weapons, scum. And that elicitation did not go too well. Now, I'm still thinking that we can get out of it, right? I'm still thinking, boy, we can probably do this good. We can still escape. So I start calmly explaining to her that we're pest control. I'm not sure why they're so angry. And that if she goes to the back of our truck and she opens the truck, she can see all of our equipment, and that would prove that we're here and why we're here. And she's like, I'm not having any of it. So I said, man, if you just look at our clipboard has a work order on it that is from the pest control company that tells you why we're supposed to be here. Now, Ryan is getting increasingly nervous and kind of hinting to me that we should give the letter over. And I'm saying, I don't think we should give the letter over just yet. I think we should, I think we could still get away with this. I think we're good, right, man? We're good. It's all good. Well, as you can imagine, it did not go perfectly well. After trying for, I don't know, Ryan, you can tell me, 15, 20 minutes, we ended up having to give the letter over because the aggression got pretty big. And I thought at one point that, Ryan may get shot, not me, but whatever. So I thought we should probably safeguard this. Now, before I go on with the last rule, let me tell you the other part of the story, right? So because I'm going to go here. No, you're not disposable, man. Yes, pest control knife, right? I mean, sometimes you have to shank a roach. You don't know, right? I mean, you don't know. Like, just saying, it's real, guys. It's real. I don't know where you live, but I live in Florida right now, and sometimes the roaches around here, you need a knife. They're big, man, because they'll shank you. Okay. Anyhow, now I'll tell you the end of that story in a minute, but let's jump over to the other location where we were photographers. Ryan and I park. We walk into the guard station, and no guards are guarding it. And we're like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity. I push the door open to walk into the facility, and we are met by, I'm not even kidding, we are met by over 150 state police. And Ryan and I are both like, oh, let's take a slow walk back. And we take a step back, go back into the guard room. And just as we close the door, a guard enters and goes, hey, what are you guys doing here? And we turn, elicitation. Now we have our photo equipment. We look like photographers. We have our business cards. Everything is perfect. And we say to the guy, oh, we're here from the local paper to take pictures for the groundbreaking. And he's like, oh, great. Just go over there and get your press badges and then come back and we'll let you in. So we walk over to the other guard station and we say to the guards, hey, Joe over here sent us to get our press badges. Awesome. They say, we'll give you the press badges. Just give us your IDs. So we give them our fake IDs, and they're now preparing the press badges. And this is going perfect. We're about to gain entry into a fully armed facility, acting like local photographers from a local paper. They're actually back there making their photocopies, preparing our press badges. And here is where you cannot plan for anything in the universe like this to happen. They say to us, oh, hey, while we're getting the badges, what paper are you from? And I hand them a business card and say, oh, here's our paper. It just so happens that one of the guards behind the counter, his cousin, is the editor that we claim we work for. Okay, no big deal. He ends up texting her and says, hey, your photographers are here. Small world. She texts back and says, photographers? Question mark. And he texts back, yeah, for the groundbreaking. You sent 2 photographers over? They're here. She goes, we didn't send any photographers over for the groundbreaking. What are you talking about? He then takes a picture of our fake IDs and sends it to her. She sends back absolutely no clue who those people are. Okay, I'm going to end the story there just for a second. I'm going to finish it. Don't worry, because I want to talk about rule number 7. You know how I said that at some point you have to plan not only your entry, but you have to plan your exit? So in this case, what we like to tell people is that when you achieve the goal, and whether that goal is that you're successful in your SE or the goal is you got caught because the security stops you, or let's make believe you're not doing this as part of a pen test, but your goal is you're going to go out and use Elicitation to have a conversation with someone. We had a number of people ask today, is there a way to practice social engineering? Then our goal is always try to leave them feeling better for having met you. So we try our hardest to not run if we don't have to. Now, I know Ryan's probably itching for me to tell the other part of the story, and I will in a second, but we always try to make sure that our ending leaves people in that mindset, that they didn't feel hacked. They didn't feel like they gave over something too personal or too much. Good elicitation allows for a person to walk away from that conversation and go, hey, this is exactly, this is good. I don't even think about it. You ever have buyer's remorse? So you bought something and then later on down the road, maybe it's even that day, you're sitting there and you're like, man, I really didn't need that. Why did I spend the money? Well, we never want to have buyer's remorse when it comes to our targets. We don't want them to have that. So we don't want them to later on be thinking about this interaction and go, wow, why did I do that? Why did I give this guy that information? So for us, what's important is that our elicitation tactics, that the things that we use allow the target to just forget about us later, to not even think about it. So in both cases, the one that I just told you about the pest control and the one where we acted as photographers ended like this. No, the picture's not on the screen. So ended like this. Hopefully it will come back and then you can see it. Waiting. There we are. That's how it ended. Us getting arrested. Fortunately, one of our points of contact was in the bushes and he took pictures, which was great because we got to capture some of these wonderful scenes. And the other one, we did not. So I'll tell you the ending here. We ended up getting our pest control equipment to show them. They did not believe us. We got cuffed and we got detained. And the one where we were photographers, we did not know that that whole interaction was happening behind the counter. So all of a sudden, we're thinking we're getting our press badges and we're surrounded by 8 guys with MP5s being arrested. So in both cases, an unplanned event ruined our elicitation. Now, we tried our hardest to talk our way. Well, okay, I tried our hardest to talk our way out of our first event. It was very unsuccessful. I could not do it. And in the second event, there was absolutely no talking out of anything. They surrounded us and we were arrested, so that we did not succeed. Now, I did say that I wanted to tell another part of the story because in the nature of this week, we had to break into this place a number of times. Yes, we've had tons of successes, Hacker Factor. I'm just telling these fail stories for a particular reason. I find that when we fail is our greatest lessons on things that we do wrong. And when it comes to elicitation, we can oftentimes learn much more from our failures. That's my justification for telling you this. Now, I'll tell you one of the, is it success? We'll let Ryan decide. So we had taken a drone with us and we wanted to fly it over one of these facilities because one of the particular parts of the job was to come back at night and to do a red teaming breach to see if we can actually breach a fenced area and roam around some buildings. So we wanted to fly the drone over the fences in daytime to see if we can find any areas of fence that maybe had holes or things like that, and that we would be able to come back to that location because it was a pretty big facility and we didn't want to walk the whole perimeter at night and end up getting shot. So we figured, let's fly the drone over. Well, I went out too far and my battery started failing and I needed to bring it back. And the drone came down to about 70 feet and somebody noticed it. And we saw on the camera somebody pointing up. Now, what we didn't know at that moment was that it was, I don't know, Ryan, legal to fly a drone over this place. So that raised some big alarms. So we didn't know that. So we took the drone back and we packed it up and we got in the car and we were going to leave and go back to the hotel to analyze the footage to see where we would break in that night. On the way past the facility, I said to Ryan, why don't we just pull in and take a picture of some of the locks on the gate there. So in case we can identify the lock so we could pick it later on. So we pull into the parking lot and there's a big sign that says wrong way, don't go this way. And I said to him, I'm going to act like a dumb tourist. I'm going to pull in the wrong way. You snap some pictures out the windshield and then I'll reverse and we'll leave. So maybe rule one should be look at the local laws. So we pull in, Ryan snaps all the pictures. I put the car in reverse and we're in this giant SUV. And in the camera, the reverse camera that comes up on the dash, I look down to see if anything's behind us. And there are about 8 or 9 guys with automatic weapons running at the car yelling, get out of the car, get out of the car. And I'm said to Ryan, we're going to run. And he says, I think we should just get out of the car and lay on the ground. And I'm like, I think we can make it. They're far enough away. And he's like, can we just get out of the car? And that conversation happened in about 2 seconds. I put it in drive, floored it. And, we exited the parking lot completely sideways at way too high rate of a speed. And we did not die. See, Ryan, you're still here. You're alive. And we did not die. I consider that best boss ever. We had a better chance of getting shot if we laid on the ground. You're right. Sirens were blaring. There was many people chasing us. There were a lot of people that definitely did not. Right. It's a new bar. We didn't die. I think that's a good bar to set. Right. I mean, we've done these jobs. And we didn't die. I just think that is a nice way to end this session. Maybe I don't know. I was thinking. Okay. Anyhow. Ryan, he thought he would drive, but it's okay. It's fine. We're here. It's a good lesson for us to learn on elicitation. There's a lot of great stories that we have now that Ryan and I can share with our kids. And no, we don't talk about hazard pay. Okay. You see, Crooked Cow on his resume. Ryan now has it. Didn't die. I think that's a great resume builder. I don't know about you guys, but imagine if he put on his resume, did die. I mean, not too successful. I think we did great. Anyhow, I want to bring up some time for questions. I saved about 15 minutes, so you can ask anything you want. And, I have plenty more stories like this for about Ryan, and he's not dying. There's so many of him not dying that are great. And I'm eye blocking, even though I can't see any of you. Yeah, you see, Ryan's even saying it. So many stories of him not dying. Just saying, I think it's great. I think it's great. Elicitation. So, what can I answer for you folks? I see several people are typing, so I shall wait. Dun, 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 dun. I like this. I see the follow-up. Human hacking, the art of not dying. That's a great title for a book. I'm going to steal that. So yeah, I think that. Okay, question, rule number 7. How hard is it to leave after you achieve the goal, but you are on a roll, so to speak? I can imagine it being really easy. Oh yeah, that is a great question. I must have missed that. Thank you for reposting that. Um, I can imagine it being really easy for, let me just get to the question, for one's ego to get in the way and want to try and get more information than needed. Lit back with another great question. Thank you for that one. That's awesome. Okay, let me just ask the question fully now. So it's, how hard is it to leave after you achieved your goal, but you're on a roll? I can imagine it being really easy for one's ego to get in the way and want to try and get more information than needed. Oh my gosh, that is such an accurate statement. And that is the case for anybody, because think of this. I talked about the chemicals of oxytocin before, and there's another one called dopamine. And both of those chemicals make us feel good. They're like, dopamine's a reward chemical. When you do something good, your brain goes, bam, here's some dopamine. And you go, yeah, I like that. I'm going to do that again. It's the dopamine release that gets us addicted to things or rewards us during video games and things like that. Our brains will release dopamine and oxytocin when we're doing good on an SE job. So you're feeling pretty great about yourself, and then your ego can get in the way. So that is why I say in these particular 7 rules that you have to plan your exit. You have to plan your exit, because if you don't plan your exit, then you may get into a situation where you're like, well, I don't know when it's supposed to end. So maybe it ends now, maybe it ends later. I don't know when the end is, so I'm just going to keep going. If you know that this is the goal, this is the exit, then you have that planned. You're more, so you could still get hijacked, right? Our amygdalas can still be hijacked, but you're more prone to allow for that good quality exit if you have the plan than if you don't. So I definitely suggest using that plan. I'll give you an example. Well, I'll give you another fail story. And Ryan was there to see it, and I'll give you another one, and that the hacker factor will love it because he'll think I never succeed. I do succeed sometimes, I really do, but I'm going to give you another fail story. Ryan and I were breaking into a place late at night, and we didn't know that the place had windows that the person's coming out couldn't see out. Like it was one way and they couldn't see out. We could see in. So we were standing by the front door, acting like we were busy. And this woman was exiting. And when she exited, she flashed fear. I mean, it was like 11:30 at night, midnight maybe. And there's these 2 guys like kind of dressed in dark clothing. And she steps out and she had big fear on her face. She kind of even gasped. And then she backed away from the door and the door was shutting. So I put my foot in the door. And we were in. So basically, we had won. We were going to be in, and we were going to go ransack the whole building. And this is where it wasn't ego that got in my way. It was the nonverbal reading. And I should have just said, "Oh, I'm sorry we startled you. See you later," and just went in. Instead, I started to explain to her our pretext for being there, why we were there late at night, what we were doing, and in that explanation, it allowed for her fear-based response to calm down, and she started to critically think. And she said, I'm not comfortable with you being here. I'm going to call the police. And we had to, of course, leave. And Ryan was like, what were you doing, man? Just shut up and go in. And so it's similar to your question, because in that case, it wasn't ego, but it was not controlling my emotional content created a failure of sorts in that. So anytime you're engaging with a human target, you have to keep your emotions in check, or there's a risk that you're going to either let happiness, good emotions, dopamine, fear, something else take over, and then there could be a failure. So it is rule number 7 is the hardest, I think, because you have to be willing to walk away, and that may not be the easiest thing to do. So thank you for that question, and Hacker Factor, thank you for calling my attention to it, because I did not see it. Really appreciate that. Would someone watching your stream live like to work for you in the future? After probably making Ryan Fans Bronk. Listen, I don't plan on Ryan dying anytime soon. But sometimes we need people. We need some disposable. New employees. So yeah, watch our website, and when we're putting jobs out there, please feel free to apply. Have you ever made it into a server room without being challenged? Yes, multiple times. Multiple times I've done that. Actually, in another job Ryan and I were on, we breached a door, and you literally, you can't make this stuff up. The guy who was supposed to be guarding the server room, so there was a problem with the locking system, and he got tired of waiting for someone to come. So he put a wedge in the knock and then went home and put a note and said, locks are broken. I wedged it open for you. So we break into the place and we don't even have to do anything. We just walk right into the server room. We thought, is this a trap? Is this like candid camera? We took pictures of that, all sorts of, all over the place. But there's been multiple times where using pretexting, I've been able to get into server rooms without being challenged. Yes. Have you? Okay. How did you find out what pest company was used, and what time of day of the week did you try to appear as pest service? Does a day of the week and time of day matter? Matamore, that's a great question. So first, we got lucky with the pest company in that on the pest control websites in that area, we just started doing OSINT, and we found that some of them had listed clients that they work with, and this company's name was on their client list. So we got really lucky with that, and that's how we found that. And then time of day and day of week does matter. If you can't find out when, and you can do that through some vishing, like call the pest control company and just say, hey, this is Joe from IBM. I'm just trying to make a schedule. I'm new here. When do you guys come out and spray for us? And you find out, it's Thursdays at 3 p.m. normally. So like, okay, that's still a good schedule this week, no problem. Then we can know that through some vishing. So it does matter, especially because you don't want to pop in and then it happens to be the actual day and time that the real pest control people are there. And now you pop in and you're there as the other guys. That could cause a pretty big headache. So those kinds of details are important. Any other must-read books around the subjects except those 4 on display behind you? Yeah, boy, sheesh. Let's see. Yeah, I have tons of books on display, but this book is quite amazing. It's Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence. This book is where he coined the phrase amygdala hijacking. This is a truly phenomenal book. I'll give you another one. This one is great. It's Not All About Me. The Top 10 Ways to Build Rapport. This one's from Robin Dreek. This is a life changer. Like, this will literally make whole new processes for you in the way that you communicate with people and build rapport. This is truly phenomenal. I would be remiss to not mention this one from Billy Boatwright. This one is all about imposter syndrome. Many of us in this industry suffer from that. If you don't, it's still a good read, but it's a great book on his journey in battling imposter syndrome and being able to accept who he is. This is another great one. And I could probably go on for hours with different books, but this one from Joe, What Everybody Is Saying, is great. I don't know if you could see that there. This is a really great book. And then this one from Joe Navarro, The Dictionary of Body Language. There's so many I have here, but I would just start with those. You can go to social-engineer.org, and you on the top of that site, there's something called Book List. You click on there and you'll see books that we've recommended. You can check that. Spoiler alert, Ryan didn't die. I think that's a great sum up of this, don't you? Okay, let's see. Great, thank you, Lit, for putting some other books there. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we did leave the sysadmin a free USB key. Thanks for that. I forgot about that, Ryan. We nicely placed that right next to his keyboard for him to put that in and check it out when he came. Joe is awesome. If you're talking about Joe Navarro, which I believe you are, Joe's books are phenomenal, and he's just a great guy. So yeah, he's pretty awesome all around. What other questions? Someone said something about a lot of fail stories. Yeah, we have a lot of fail stories, but we have a lot of success stories too. I just, everyone always in speeches tells you their success stories. And I thought I'm going to be different. I'm going to tell you a story where I failed miserably, and, that will help us learn something. So, yeah. What is the prep time before a site visit? That's a really, really great question, Madam Moore. So I'm going to answer this in two different ways. So the first, the business way, is that many times clients will give us prep time, like where you have this much paid time for OSINT, you have this, this much time for prep beforehand, or, we're going to give you 1 day on site before. But a lot of times we'll spend the time we have on OSINT that they pay us, but then we'll spend time as a team talking and analyzing that OSINT and coming up with pretext and then deciding what we need. It could be anywhere from, like for a site visit, anywhere from like 30 to 50 hours that we'll spend in prep beforehand. And especially if we need to have props and tools, we can do that. How can you start your social engineering career? There's a couple ways that you can do that. I gave this answer earlier before, and this is always a hard question to answer, because there are a few ways that you can do this, but the first couple are going to seem really self-serving for me. If you want to get some educated skill in this, you can come to our course. Right, we teach a course in social engineering and has a practical certification, and that gets people some skill in it if they have none, if they've never done it before, and that can get you a leg up. Now, when it comes to getting a career here, there's a couple different ways you can do this. First, you can start your own company. Now, that could be very rewarding if you're successful. It can also be a very difficult path, right? But it depends on where you're from and what contacts you have to get a couple small jobs starting off, and then growing in that. The second is you can get hired by companies that do only social engineering, like ours, right? So we have a Slack channel that we operate that has over 1,000 people in it that every day talk about social engineering nonstop. And in that Slack channel, we have a career channel, and we've had 5 or 6 people find jobs in this space with my company and with other companies through that Slack channel. So you could join things like that and get hired. And then the third avenue is you can get a job with an adversarial simulation company, like a pen test company that does social engineering, and work your way into that department. Now, I say this realizing that it really depends on where you're at right now with your career, if any of those are doable. Because if you're established in your career right now and you have a really good, established career path, then it's like starting over. So I say these things, and I know it sounds like I'm just nonchalantly saying them, but I understand there's some risk and reward in that. So I do recognize that that's an easy answer to say and not an easy answer to do. Let's see. Do any police recognize you from previous arrests? No. So Hacker Factor, this is, I'm thank you for asking that, because this is a good point to clarify. That week, Ryan and I got arrested like 5 times. Now, when I say arrested, we didn't get booked. We always stop the process before we get booked with the letter or with our point of contact stepping in. So we let security go as far as cuffing us, putting us in handcuffs, apprehending us, stopping us. And then we always ask for a little bit of time to try to get out of it. Because there has been some times where I've talked us out of being arrested. And that's wonderful if you can do that. But then once it's obvious that we are, we're not going to bypass that, then we use the letter, and that stops us from getting booked. Because we don't want to have records, right, on that. So we don't want to get fully arrested and sent to prison. So we don't ever take it that far. So the police wouldn't recognize me, and I don't have a record with that. Did your get out of jail card ever fail? Yeah. I wasn't formally charged with a crime, but I'll tell you where one time it failed, Madam Moore. I was breaking into 7 warehouses, And my pretext was as a waste management person there to check on a serial number for a trash compactor that may have had a recall. And then, of course, we always told them there was no recall and they were fine and everything was safe. And it worked on all 7 warehouses, 100% perfect. I went into each one, did the same pretext, and every one of them let me in, and it worked. And then my 8th one, the owner, the company said, look, upon exit, because this is your last one, we want you to give your letter to the security and tell them that all of this was a pen test and that, you were hired to do it. And I'm like, that's a horrible idea. They're going to hate me. And they said, yeah, but we really want you to do it. So I went in, it worked 8th time. Bam. On my way out, I hand them the letter and say, look, I'm supposed to give this to you. And this guy pulled his weapon on me and he apprehended me. Then he went and got the warehouse manager, and the warehouse manager took the letter. And I said, look, if you just call that number on the letter, you can verify that I am who I say I am. And I said, why would I give you that? I was on the way out. Like, why would I give it to you? And I'm sitting there in this chair cuffed, and this guy's got his weapon out. And I'm like, dude, it doesn't make logical sense, man. And he says to me, I'm not calling any number on this letter because it's probably your girlfriend sitting out in a van in the parking lot, and she's just going to tell me that you belong. And I said to him, this was really dumb. I wasn't trying to be sarcastic, but I really thought it was a good idea. I said, hey, man, that's actually a great idea. I'm going to try that. And he's like, of course you are. You're a criminal. And I'm like, crap. So I asked him to call the number. He wouldn't do it. So he called his security team, and his security team knew nothing about the audit. So they said, we don't know what you're talking about. So now they took me to a closet and they locked me in a closet, which really sucked. Now, fortunately for me, they left me with all of my lock picks, my shims, and my cell phone. So I got out of the cuffs. I got my cell phone. I called my point of contact and I said, I need you to freaking get here now. I need you to call this place and I need you to tell them what's happening before somebody kills me. And they did. And then it cleared up. So I've had get out of jail free letters fail, but not, that was the worst, I think, of them. Fan Bronc, is your SE core paid? Yes, it is a paid course. You can find information on social-engineer.com. Have you ever spent time and money to be trained to do a job or gain a good amount of knowledge on the one you're assuming, like pest control? That's a nice question, Adam. So not for a short pretext, right? So if we know that we're going to go do a job and we're going to be there for a few minutes and it's going to either succeed or fail, then we try to use pretext in jobs that don't require an extensive amount of knowledge. So even like with that waste management one where I was doing potential recalls on motors, I wasn't the guy that was going to repair it. I didn't have to be mechanical. My pretext was the company sent me out. I have a list of serial numbers. And if the serial number on your motor matches, I have to send a tech out to replace it. And of course, it was never going to match because there was no recall. So they were going to be fine and everything was going to be good. And going and looking at a serial number requires no extra knowledge. I did download all the schematics from the waste management website for these trash compactors. So I knew where the motor was and I knew how to check the serial number. That kind of education we do, but I've never went for any type of formal courses just to learn something for a social engineering job. Yeah. Good reaction from him. Yeah, it really was. They killed you or they called you and got you out? Yes, sorry. They called and got me out. They didn't kill me. I am still alive, just like Ryan. I did not die. Do you need acting experience? Well, Skuld, I won't say that you need acting experience, but one of our employees is an actor. He was an actor in some TV shows and on plays and things like that. And he definitely has a leg up when it comes to getting in and out of pretext, when it comes to getting in and out of character. He has a leg up on that. He can pull these things. He can get himself psyched up for vishing. He enjoys that part of the work, which a lot of people don't. So yeah, I won't say that you need it, but having it can't hurt. I've told people before, yeah, go to method acting class or go to an improv class or a Toastmasters class. Those kinds of things can get you ready for taking part in social engineering. If you have if you're not naturally outgoing and talkative. Those things can help. Spoiler alert. I didn't die and neither did Ryan. That's what I should name the talk. Don't you think, Ryan? I should have named the talk, spoiler alert, Ryan didn't die. I'm gonna rename it. Yeah, maybe next time. I'll just call it Ryan didn't die. Spoiler alert. Okay, what time? Oh, we're a little bit over. Sorry, folks. There was no one here moderating me. I was moderating myself. Your questions, as always, have been awesome. This year's SEVillage was great for us. We're sorry that there wasn't more. We really, really wanted to do much more at it, but just the timing didn't work out, and legalities are just so hard to run social engineering stuff over the internet. All these talks that we had here will be posted. I saw someone ask about Samantha's talk. We were really sad that couldn't happen, but Samantha had a family emergency and she had to go take care of those matters. And we didn't want her to stress about the talk because it came up all of a sudden. It wasn't something that we knew ahead of time. So she wasn't able to give that talk. So that's why that one didn't happen. But all these talks will be posted on our YouTube. I'm hoping in the next couple days, right? So just watch Twitter Human Hacker or SOC Engineer Inc. and we'll be promoting these. And you could see Christina Licati's talk. That was phenomenal if you missed that one. And then we had I was going to say Joe because that's his username, but we had Ryan give a talk. And in that talk, if you missed that, you're going to love it because he told stories again about how he didn't die. We almost died that one, but he didn't die. So that's another great talk. And then today we had Lisa Forte. She was phenomenal. And then John McCombs talked about the ILF and then finished up here with me. And all weekend, your questions have been amazing. And your interactions have been really positive. So we thank you for that, because I know it can be really hard at DEF CON. People tend to get a little goofy sometimes, but you guys have done a phenomenal job. So thank you for that. Yeah, let me grab the YouTube link for you real quick. I know I should have this on the top of my head, right? But I don't for some reason. Let's see. Who has our YouTube link? Why, what the heck? Let's see if I can find it. If I don't find it real quick, what I'll do is I'll get it and then post it. Wait, hang on, I know. I have to SE the link from Ryan, I know. Ryan, where's this link? Okay, bam, 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 bam. I thought it would be easy if I just searched for my name and then I found like a talk or something. There we are. There we are. Okay, here we go. There. That's it. You have it now. And we'll get these up, but there'll be no more talks tomorrow. We don't have an event running here tomorrow, so we won't be doing that. But Q&A today was great. We're going to post that again. We'll post that with the talks. We had an impromptu Q&A with Ryan, Shelby, and myself. Your questions were phenomenal, and they were so good that we recorded it. We're going to post it. So so thank you for that. And feel free to check out our conference, the Human Behavior Conference. If you liked content like what you saw here, we have a 3-day conference coming up in March in Orlando that will be covering all the topics about human behavior. Joe Navarro's coming to talk about nonverbals. Amy Herman's talking about visual influence. Robin Dreek is talking about rapport building and trust. Ian Rowland is talking about cold reading. R. Paul Wilson's coming in talking about sleight of hand and deception. Sorry, it won't be online. We're doing it live in Orlando because a lot of these things, just the interaction piece is really valuable. So we'll be doing that there in Orlando. But you could check, just keep in touch with us through Twitter and the websites, and you have my email here. And I'll be able to fill you in on the details of that when we launch that, but that's coming up soon. But I can't thank you enough, folks, for coming and making this great. And I think that's it. I see no more questions. We'll be in the chat for a little while. It will not be a webinar. It will be a live event, and it will be training sessions. So it will not be a webinar, but you'll be in Orlando. Okay, everyone, have a great night. Thank you for coming and hanging out, and appreciate again your time here with DEF CON SEVillage Virtual, and we'll see you next year, hopefully live and in person, as those are always so much better. Thank you, Ludovine. You rock. Can you SE live with Ryan or someone you know on the phone right now? Just a little bit? Nope.